Pamela. Hi, welcome to the Scenic Route podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jennifer.
So, I am super excited because today we're talking about something that every one of us has a history with and has a present and a future with. We're going to talk about money and all different kind of ways, probably more of the nasty side of things where we don't really want to deal with. So I'm super excited that I have the sunny Pamela here to walk us through it, to hold our hand, so that we kind of get like an idea of who you are. Can you please briefly walk us through your story, like how you started, how you got where you today, like the pivotal crossroads, the big moments?
All right. Okay, Jennifer. Well, for me to do that, we have to go back to Trinidad and Tobago
Oh
in the
yes, please.
Caribbean,
Yes,
where,
please.
little
Ooh.
girl Pamela was.
Tell me about little girl Pamela.
Yeah. So, my mom, I was the eighth of nine children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kudos to your mom.
Yes. And she raised us more or less on her own
Wow.
because so it's nine of us, five from her first marriage, four from her second. But the second marriage, she was more or less doing everything on her own. In fact, I remember her saying quite, flippantly, my father was the laziest man she's ever known. So
Okay.
um, she did it herself. And what she did was support herself
Mm-hmm.
and create a lifestyle for her by running. For those of you who know Trinidadian cuisine, she had a roti shop, which is a curry dish with. Oh,
Oh,
do you know that? Do you know rotis?
delicious.
Yes.
Oh,
So she
yes.
made a living by cooking and selling that in a little shop
Mm.
right aside of the house. And the thing is, she couldn't read or write.
No, wow. And she
Indian
was in
woman.
business.
Yeah, yeah. So she's an Indian woman back in the day that would have never gone to school. She didn't even know the alphabet. But man, she
Wow.
was good with money. And I look back now and I'm like, how did she do inventory? How did she
Yeah. Like
balance
bookkeeping.
cash? Yeah, yeah. Nothing. I guess she did. I don't know. But she was able to support her family and her
Wow.
lifestyle based on that. And she did that for many, many years. And I remember when I was maybe like about five or six, she met a man because she was, by the time I'm that age, she and my father are no longer together.
Yeah.
She met a man, and, as an adult woman looking back, I think it was the first time she probably fell in love
Mm.
because Indian culture back then, her two marriages were arranged marriages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she would have been, I am thinking, around 45 and probably in love for the first
Her
time.
first spring.
Yeah, right.
Mm.
And the thing is, when you're in love as a teenager or a young adult as the first time, what you do, yes, there are consequences, but it's not as big as when you're 45 and you have nine kids
Yeah, we were
and
too dumb to care.
right. And she fell in love and she fell in love hard.
Mhm.
And so at the time when she met this man, she had owned her house, fully paid for, no mortgage or anything,
Mm.
because she's running this
Yeah.
roti shop on her own.
Oh, this story
Imagine
doesn't
that.
end well, does it?
No, it
Oh, I
doesn't.
thought so. I had this
It
nagging feeling
doesn't.
of like this
Yeah.
story's not going to
Anyway.
end
And
well.
I'm going to get to how I started my business. But what happened was she sold her property
Mm-hmm.
and against the advice of all her older children.
Mm-hmm.
And she moved in with my stepfather. And it was my mom, my stepfather, myself, and my younger sister. Sorry, my mom, my younger sister,
Mm-hmm.
myself. And when she made that move, most of her adult children, they stopped talking to her, and the family was just
Wow.
split. And she used the proceeds of a house to build a house on his property, on his land.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the exact time. In my mind, I think it's about a month after the house was built. He literally threw us out in the streets. Literally threw us out in the streets. And
Oh
I
my God.
remember, I mean, sometimes I wonder how much of it is influenced by Hollywood, but I remember it being a
Mm,
night and the rain, it was raining
mm.
and we're standing out there,
Well, we could
right?
definitely turn this into a movie.
Right.
Like, I mean,
Right.
dear Lord. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
Wow.
we're there. My mother has no education, no money because everything went in the house, two young daughters.
Mm,
And so talking about, I'm like about 7 or 8. My younger sister is 5 years younger than me. And we're there and nowhere to go. No halfway house, no nothing like
mm-hmm,
that. So I remember my mother going and asking neighbors if we can stay there. And that was our life for many, many, many years. Spend the 2 weeks
mm-hmm,
here, 2 weeks here. And I remember the longest we ever stayed anywhere was 6 months, and that was in somebody's garage.
mm-hmm.
And a garage in Trinidad and Tobago at the time is very different from a garage we know now in a first world country. Let me just say that, right?
I kind of, yeah,
Yeah,
I
right. It
I
was
believe you.
struggle. It was a struggle, and I was able to. The older I got, the more I became aware of what was happening and why it happened. My mom died when I was 19,
Mm-hmm,
and I suddenly became the primary caregiver of my younger
mm,
sister, who would have been 14. So I had
mm,
to grow up pretty fast. In fact, by the time I was about 15 or 16, my mom got very sick, the stress and the heartbreak.
mm,
And she died at 60, a very old woman, an old
mm,
60.
mm.
And so I had to grow up pretty fast.
Yeah, and
And
rough.
I and rough, it was tough.
Mm.
When you're poor, somehow the abuse just seems to come easier and faster towards you. The abuse, the violence, the judgment,
Mm-hmm,
the harassment, and that's what we
mm-hmm,
were exposed to,
mm-hmm.
right? It just came to us no matter how hard it felt,
Yeah,
no matter
it's
how
like
hard
that.
we tried.
It's yeah, I get that. Like, this is why so this is where this is where the sociologist comes in me. Like, you
Hmm.
need to talk about the social implications of poverty,
Hmm.
right? Like, it's like, as money is creating a barrier against harassment and then judgment and false accusations and all these sorts of things.
All types
So
of abuse, yes.
yeah,
And somehow the abusers and the harassers feel it's okay to do that because we're
the
poor.
core,
We're somehow worth
you're
less.
under them on the ladder,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
that means.
yeah. And I struggled, I suffered a lot, but I have this beautiful, beautiful resilient spirit that I'm so proud of and so happy and grateful that I have it that
Yeah, you're a gorgeous sunshine. Like,
thank you.
yeah, no, I mean, you're just there, like,
Thank
presence.
you. Thank you. But I'll tell you this, I having struggled like that, spending so many years
Mm,
houseless, um, I I vowed I would not follow the same faith as my mother.
mm,
So that involved me knowing, but what does that mean? If I don't want to
mm.
follow the same faith as my mother, what did she do?
Yeah,
And
what was her, like, mistake, if you want
yes,
to say like
it's
that? Mm,
mistake. It was mistake, and that was hard because I loved
mm,
my mother, right? And then when I start to examine and go deep and reflect on what happened, that love, while it was still there, I got angry and I went through all the emotions
mm,
and then eventually I accepted it. But I'm like, okay, so I need to not do this. I need to
mm.
protect myself and not do this.
Yeah,
And it's I realize it started with education. So I started to learn a little bit about money. The thing is, you're poor and you're struggling. You don't have mentors. I didn't have mentors. I didn't have anybody willing to help me do anything. But I have this,
yeah, and you also, I assume you also do not have a lot of mental and emotional capacity to
yeah,
learn, right? It's not on the forefront on your mind because you're struggling just to get by.
yeah, survival mode. When you're in
Yeah.
survival, you
Yes.
you don't have capacity for that. But you know what? I was able to somehow do it. And I
Mm.
was able to
Wow.
claw myself and my sister out
Mm-hmm.
of poverty. We were able to get out of that, and I was able to finish school. So was my sister, and we got little jobs here and there. And eventually, every job was better than the one before, right?
Yeah. Slow
And
and steady.
slow and steady, exactly. And the every time I got a better job, I always had this influence, this thing where, okay, gotta learn, because I didn't learn so much. There was so much I didn't learn in my teenage years and early
Mm-hmm.
20s because I was surviving, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and a big part of that learning was financial literacy,
Mm-hmm.
because I so didn't want to end up like my mother, because I saw
Mm-hmm.
what she did and how it affected like 4 generations.
Mm-hmm.
Siblings stopped, like the my younger sister and I, we were with my mother, but there were other children and
Mm-hmm.
they had children. And there's this big rift right now, even
Mm-hmm.
now, right?
Wow.
With the
Mm-hmm.
siblings and their children and so forth. So um, I just wanted to make sure that didn't happen to me. And I
Mm-hmm.
just educated myself. I very early o'clock in the game, I came across the concept of money mindset, and I started to do some work. It started with forgiveness, forgiving my
Mm.
mother, forgiving myself, because I blamed myself for a lot of stuff.
And
And
especially like forgiving your mom's, let's call him abuser because he was abusing
oh,
her.
he was,
Um,
without any doubt. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so also like, I mean, I don't know. I always feel so bad when like good people like your mother, right?
Mm,
Like good to a fault,
mm,
right? Are
yeah,
taken advantage of
yeah.
just for being good people. Like
You know,
good-hearted people. Yeah, you can call them naive and whatever,
mhm,
and it's always wise to, I don't know, not do, I don't know, silly things, but you should never be in a position to kind of like always double check, I feel. I don't know.
yeah.
It's
I get it. She was a good woman. I get that.
mm,
He was a mean man. I mean, I lived there for a few years, and I said, I know what it's like to live with the devil. That's what I say. There is a poem by someone, a refugee. I think she was from Iran or Iraq, one of those countries. And she wrote a poem, and she said, when you leave home when home is the mouth of a shark. And I still remember
mm,
that,
mm-hmm,
right? I'd prefer to be homeless and houseless than go back and live
mm,
with that devil,
mm,
as I call him, right?
mm,
Anyway, one thing led to another, and I was able to just get myself out of this poverty, not just the
mm,
physical poverty, but the poverty mindset.
mm-hmm,
And I came up with this system that worked for me.
mm-hmm.
And I got to a place where I was happy where I am. I felt like I was healing. And
Mm-hmm.
and just so you know, the healing is still happening, right?
But
It's
this
never
is the
done.
thing, right? Like you're, I don't know. I always like that's what I tell my clients when they're like, "Aren't we like done with this shit?" And I'm like, "Well, you're never done.
Hmm.
When
Yeah.
well, you'll be done when you are done. Like
Yes.
quite literally,
Yes.
on your last day, you'll be done, right?
That's
Like
when you're
because
done.
yeah, that's when you're done, right? Because
Yeah.
there will always be. It's kind of like this never-ending Tower of Babel. There's always another floor up, and
Hmm.
regardless whether you where you're at in your business or in your personal life, like it would always be there will always be more.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's but you need to flip it to see the beauty of that,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yep. And yeah, and then so, one thing led to another. I
Mm.
moved to Canada and got myself a job. I was working at a college in financial aid. And I'm realizing, you know, coming from Trinidad and Tobago
Going into
and
snowy Canada.
going to
Lovely.
snowy Canada, but Canada is an affluent by and large. I mean, in the
Mhm.
most part, Canada is an affluent country. I live in Canada, in Ottawa, Canada, which is
Yeah.
the city. It's the capital of Canada. It's the
Yeah.
seat of government, right? And it's, I would say an affluent city. But then working with students in financial aid, I'm realizing there's so many parents couldn't afford to get a student loan
Mm.
because their credit was trash or they had so
Mm.
much debt, so much credit
Mhm.
card debt and that type of
Mm.
thing. And that made me curious and it reminded me of, okay, you know, what my mom went through and what we went
Mhm.
through. And I'm seeing folks now going into, money problems. And it reminded me of the situation with my mother. And over the years, I'm like, you know what? I feel women in particular need help, and I could
Mm.
help them because I am a woman who clawed my way out of poverty.
Oh
And
God, yes. I mean,
right? And
mm.
I felt if only from experience, I felt I could have helped other women. But
Yeah.
what I did, I went and I got accredited. I'm now an accredited financial counselor,
Mhm.
and I've upgraded my skills. I've become accredited and qualified that I can counsel anybody, but I choose to work with women
Mhm.
and show them, listen, you can be struggling with money, but there's a way out of this. And
Mm.
it's not just, while it's very important, the numbers, the dollars and cents, that's very, very important. You need to tie that in with what I call trauma-informed money mindset. You need to bring
Mm.
in those
Ooh.
two
Yeah.
together, right?
Mm.
And that's what I do. I believe that's my unique value proposition.
Yes. Yeah. Like this, like bracket.
So I'll tell you, it
branding
has,
less, branding lesson incoming.
yes, yes. So I'll tell you, I call it a trivecta. So what it
Oh.
is, there's my story, which is there for inspiration.
Yes.
There's the numbers and the dollars and cents that's there for the financial literacy.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the trauma-informed money mindset that's there for the healing. And that is what I
Oh,
call the trivecta.
we
And
love
that's what
it.
I do. My story is an integral part of my work
Yes.
because I have lived it.
Yes.
I have lived it. So,
Yes.
and not just lived poverty, I've lived through a divorce. I have gone through it all. And as a business owner, I'm going through it now. You know how it is, the
Mm.
cash flow situation sometimes, especially during COVID. So, no, that's what I do now. I work with women
Mm.
and, my tagline is I work with women who are ready to change their
Mm.
relationship with money so they can live the life that they really want to live. Not the life they're supposed to live, not the life that they're
Mm.
living, but the life that they really want to live. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, first off, thank you so much for sharing your story truthfully. And yeah, like branding lesson incoming. Right? Like there's always so much beauty in your story. And it doesn't, like, sometimes people, like, when I talk to my clients, they're like, well, but I never, like, nothing big happened to me, like
Mhm.
I'm like, well, I don't know, do you wish something bad to happen to you? Like, um
We all have a story.
we all have a story, we all have trauma, and
Mhm.
trauma is not there's no, like, oh, I have bigger trauma than you do. Like, it's not competition. When your
Mm-mm.
body, like, releases a trauma response, it doesn't matter, it was big to you, and that's all that
Mhm.
matters.
Yes.
um and as said, right, like, back to kind of like more like the branding business lens. Yes, it's not a prerequisite to have your story when you're helping people doing budgets and planning for their retirement. But just if you think of working with someone and they have their story, this upbringing, and
Mhm.
you're in the same boat, I don't know. I always rather navigate towards those people who I kind of like, oh, they get me,
Yes.
right? And yes, also other people can get you, but I don't know. I always feel it's different. If
Yeah, I feel that. So, we all talk in business, we talk about, our ideal clients, right? And we want to zero in on them. I feel that the people who can relate to my story have similar stories,
mm-hmm.
and they're the ones who come to me, and they make the perfect clients.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that. And if my story inspires someone, that tends to be what pulls them into me.
Yeah.
And then there's just this deeper connection, and the work, although it could be hard work at times, it's beautiful at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's the differentiator, right? Like that's the value driver, right? The inspiration. The oh wow, if she did it, I can do it too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, because I mean, they are a shit ton of people who can do your accounting. There are a shit ton of people who can do your branding. Like we're all
Mm-hmm.
like, let's be real, that's cool. But
Mm-hmm.
the value driver, inspiration to me is such a big value driver. If you're like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, okay. I every time I talk to this person, I feel like lit up. I'm so excited. I'm like ready to go into action mode. That feeling, if you get that with someone, you can't buy that. Like you
Yeah.
can't it no.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never used to tell my story, So I'm in business 5 years now. And I think the first 2 years, even 2.5 years, I didn't tell that story that I just told to
Yeah.
everybody who is listening to this podcast right now. They had an idea. Pam is from Trinidad. She had a tough,
Yeah,
young
yeah,
life.
but not like
Not the detail that I go into. But I started doing that, I think, sometime 2020 when,
mm.
as an entrepreneur, we wear so many hats. So I guess I was wearing my marketing hat that day. And I started doing research, and, I started to read, and then one thing led to another, books and etc. And I realized, wait a minute, that's my story. I think it started with Simon Sinek. What's
Oh,
your
your
why? I
why.
think,
Hmm.
yeah, I think I saw the TED Talk,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that
That's a
led,
good
right?
way into things for
Yeah.
sure.
And then I'm like, oh, I need to know my why. Of course, I know my why,
Mm.
but do other people know my why? And that's when I really started to, first of all, embrace my story for what it
Mm-hmm.
is,
Yeah.
and then comfortably enough to share it. Yeah. So it's now on
Yeah.
my website. I don't hold back that I grew up in poverty and I was, abused and all of that. I now, I wear it as a badge of honor.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's really something about that, right? It's not, you can still decide which parts to keep private,
Hmm.
right? Like it's not, you don't create relatability through kind of like a share it all type of an
Yep.
approach. That's not the case, but it's just really, I always kind of like think of like we, anyone who is listening is, I I know I go out on a limb, is either solopreneur wanting to become a solo entrepreneur, or has like a small team.
Hmm.
And so you're not like a big international corporation. So do actually what, I don't know, what you like, play your strength,
Yeah.
play your aces. That's
Yeah.
actually doing shit that doesn't scale. Like
Hmm.
actually go back to, hey, this is me. This is what I do. And like this is the trauma I had, and this is how I healed from it.
Yes. Yes. And I think women in particular, we have a unique way of doing that.
Mm.
I was talking to a lady a couple of weeks ago, and her story, she started her business around her story, which
Oh.
was, she was married, abusive relationship, and she spent 3 years trying to get out of the marriage and putting an exit plan into place.
Mm.
It took her 3 years, saving
Mm-hmm.
money, doing what she had to do
Yeah.
quietly while being abused.
Mm.
And eventually she left. And after a few years, she has this really successful business now in the US. But it just, when you're really willing to take your story There's so many people now with her that they're so drawn to her because what she basically does is help them with an exit plan when
Oh.
they're in a troubled relationship like that. And that's her business, right? And she's open about what she does. And of course, women who are in a similar situation are drawn to her.
Yeah.
And they come to her, she helps them and benefit in all the ways that she can help them. So yeah, our story is, I feel, is our biggest asset as
Yes.
business owners.
That is, yeah. I mean,
Mm.
you're especially this goes for all service providers.
Mhm.
You are providing the service.
Yes.
You are your business biggest asset.
Right. Yep.
All of you.
Yeah, we
Like,
are biggest asset. Yes, say it
yeah.
again.
Yes. I mean, like the good things and the shitty things and the traumas and like
Yeah.
all of it.
Mhm.
So bring it to the table,
Yes.
right? And I feel, was there some part of you when you, I'm curious, where you shared when you, in 2020 you said you started to share it more openly?
Mhm.
Was that also part of your healing process?
Yes. Yes, it was. Um, Not just the actual words sharing it like that, but having people hear me and come to me with love and affection and understanding and empathy, that helps with my healing.
Oh.
Yeah. You see, what
So it was
happened?
more about you had to become a version of you that allowed this empathy and affection be
The
flowed
flow.
towards you.
Yes, yes. Yep.
Ooh.
And
Mm.
you earlier on in the podcast, you said I'm sunshine, I'm so bubbly and bright. That's who I am. So
Mhm.
I think people didn't expect such a sad story, to be honest. Folks who didn't know me didn't expect such a sad
Yeah.
story. So
Yeah.
there was this big impact and shock, I think.
Uh-huh.
So and they'd write me or take me out for coffee and just wanted Pam,
Yeah, just be
I'm
nice. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
right. And that was really nice. And being open to accepting that and hearing that
Mhm.
was very healing for me. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So how are you now supporting women healing from I let's go. I'd say most of the women who come see you because they have some sort of intense money situation or
Yes.
money trauma going on.
Mhm. So they usually start following me, and I'll tell you, clients usually follow me for like a minimum of 6 months before they even
That's
like a
yeah.
post or even say hello.
So
So
to
I don't
all the
even
shadow
know.
lurkers out there,
Yeah,
we know
yeah.
what you're doing.
Yes, right. I wouldn't even know. And then they'll book a call and I'll be like, so how did you hear about me? Oh, I've been following you for 6, 7 months, 2 years,
Why
whatever,
do you
right?
think that is? Why do you think you have such a long lead up time?
Folks are ashamed of their money
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Mm.
They want to know if I can really help them. Am I trustworthy? Like, who is this woman? Who is she talking about all of this? Let me get to know. It's a very
Yeah.
vulnerable thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Money and that
And shame,
trauma
yeah,
and shame,
shame.
right?
Mm.
So they do that, and when they feel comfortable enough, they reach out to me. And they tend to reach out to me because, well, a few things, but they're usually struggling with consumer debt.
Mm.
If they have no debt, they are struggling with a budget.
Mm.
And while they're meeting their everyday expenses, they know they're not maximizing that. They know they could do so much better. Like, I work for $150,000.
But at the end of the month, I have like a penny left. So like,
Exactly,
mm.
exactly. And that situation will only go on for so long, and then they'll start going into debt again. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. There are some
It's
women
kind of
who,
like as if you can't hold, so you can get into kind of like the capacity of receiving more money, but you cannot hold it
yes,
or
yeah.
sustain it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ugh, we're gonna talk about that. I'm gonna make
Yeah.
a note. We're gonna talk about that.
Yeah. So that it's usually that.
Mm.
Some of them just getting by because they landed a really good job and
Mm-hmm.
they just doing what they think they should do, but they know that they don't understand what they're doing and they know that's not sustainable. So they reach out for help.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you, they all know inherently, they all know that it's not just the dollars and cents. It's not the numbers alone. They all
Mm-hmm.
know they have some history with money. And we all have a money story. They all know that there's some story, some money mindset issues going on with money. So they come to me because they know I can help them with both. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, they would have heard about my story. So they relate to it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why they come to me. Um, I think when they come to me, they don't expect to go as deep as we go,
That
right?
goes for my clients too. They're always kind of like, oh, now I'm a bit
Yeah.
scared. Well, you better be.
So we go, and my work is gentle, but I mean, like I always say, you have $50,000 in credit card debt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, yes, we get you on a plan to pay down that debt, sure. But if we don't fix the root cause of that, you're going to end up in debt again,
Yeah. It's kind of
right?
like dieting, right? Like it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
you have
Mhm.
yo-yo depth and you have yo-yo weight,
Yeah,
I suppose.
exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. And so we figure out what the problem is, like what is the root cause of this. During the pandemic, so um overwhelm was always an issue, but
For
what
consumer debt or for
just life,
oh
overwhelming
yeah, well yeah.
life.
Yeah,
That
oh yeah.
right, that was something that
It's called
was
adulthood, Pamela. It's
right.
called adulthood.
It was always there, but there would be a lot
Mm-hmm.
of well, I'm in a shitty marriage and that's causing it, or some
Mm-hmm.
other thing, some childhood stuff that's causing it. What I'm seeing now, the overwhelm is out there. It's like that's the first thing that is really like superseding all the other stuff. There's so much overwhelm happening
Mm.
that women are just driving themselves crazy
Yeah, or just shutting
trying.
down. Like, no, I'm not gonna. No,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even. Yeah.
not even exactly. So I am too tired and I'm too busy to cook. So we
Mm-hmm.
just order food. Well, you order food too many times and you eventually you can't afford it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then for you to sit down and plan the meals and go grocery shopping
You
and
don't
stuff,
have
you're
the
too busy.
capacity to do
You
it.
don't have
It's
the
like,
capacity.
mhm.
Exactly. And so we have I've had and they don't they're so busy and they don't have the
This sounds like a
capacity.
really bad cycle.
It is a bad cycle. So with when I work with my clients, I'm like, let's take a pause. Let's take a pause and see what your life
Mm.
could look at like without doing two jobs. Without because you see, the thing is we feel that if we have money trouble, the best thing or the thing to do is to just get a second job or increase your
Yeah, have
income
more
somehow.
exactly like increase income, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. Most people say you have two sides to come at this: either increase income or cut spending.
yeah.
That's
I
kind
say
of like the
both. It's
yeah.
both. It's both. But if you have a deficit of $1,000 in your budget, I don't expect you to cut $1,000. Neither do I expect you to bring in an additional $1,000 in
Yeah.
income. But if you don't know what you're doing, you
Mm.
think that you need to bring in $1,000, and then you're looking at not having, you're working how many hours a week now, have no
Mm.
time for the kids, have no time to plan your meals, no time to
Mm.
shop in the grocery for the food, and then it's just like this, like you say, it's like this revolving door, just in out, catch 22.
Yeah, we're not even talking about like health tolls, like
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
you know.
Right. And then your kids are growing up now without you spending so much time with them. They're seeing that money just stresses you out. Imagine the money lesson you're giving them.
Mm. Yeah.
Right. They are seeing that money is stressful. You got to work hard for money.
Yeah,
And
you
you,
gotta
while
work
you do
hard.
that,
Money is stressful. Money is
mhm,
hard work. Money is
mhm,
everything you
yeah.
don't want,
And you are
basically, right?
creating their mindset for them that they grow up and they just repeat the cycle that they saw their parents live.
Oh,
So
oh. So how do we
that's
break the cycle?
behavior. We got to change our behavior. And to change our
Mm.
behavior, we need to do a bit of money mindset work together with, because we could do all the money mindset work and can't balance the budget. It's not going to make sense.
No, it's always both,
Likewise,
right? Like
yeah,
it's
yeah. If
as
we balance the budget and we don't fix your scarcity
yeah.
mindset, then we
Yeah,
have a
that's the
problem.
thing where a lot of the also kind of like all these like I don't know, attraction work, mood visualization board, mood board, vision board
Yeah,
things fall
yeah,
short,
yeah.
right? You can do all the affirmations you want if you don't have the capacity to hold them and to execute on them. Like you can say affirmations until you're, I don't know, until you fall down in your grave. Like it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I said that to a new client I had last week, and she is overspending by $2,000. And she was telling me that every morning she says a money mantra. She heard this from some guru in money, right?
Oh, I love the gurus.
Yes. And she's like, I'm saying my money mantra. I have it written on my mirror.
I do all the things, but why am I overspending?
Yeah, yeah. Right.
What did you tell her?
He said, let's look at your budget. Let's leave the mantra aside. Let's look at your budget. And we were able to bring it down. We got it to a place where she can now supplement her income with a couple $100. And yeah, that's what we had to do. I had to see where the budget was and what was happening. I mean, spending $2,000, close to $2,000 in takeout. Come on, we got to fix that first. Right. And it's not fixed completely yet, but she knows what.
Yeah, but you're kind of like going to, but also like, as I said, like going to the root, kind of like the root cause of the things. Like, why are you actually spending? I don't know. I mean, take out money. And it's always kind of like, it seems like an easy enough thing to answer superficially.
Yes.
Right. Like, I mean, I don't know. I remember when I was in corporate, I mean, I don't know. I have still months where I'm really not that good with money, but I know why it's happening.
Yes.
So at least like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
And you try to course correct the next month. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yes. Right. Like I know for me personally, I know because I'm dealing with chronic pain and I feel so powerless when I have kind of like a flare. Money or food are the things I can control. So that's when I have the tendency to overspend.
Yes.
Because I can control. Whereas other things I cannot. So, but so then and I can course correct the next month. I'm probably gonna hire. We're gonna go to the root cause of this.
Yeah,
Pamela,
I did not know you struggle.
Pamela, I'm like, well, it's not struggle. Like I'm not in debt or anything, right? Like,
but no, I was talking about. I didn't realize you struggle with chronic pain because I do as well, eh?
Oh,
I do as well.
What are you struggling with? Shall we play like see who is struggling more?
I have been diagnosed with MS, eh?
Oh,
in late 2017, yeah.
2017. How are you keeping up with MS?
What I get is severe chronic pain all the time. Like I'm in pain right now. For the past hour that I've been giggling and laughing and stuff, I'm in pain, right?
Badge of honor, sister. Me too.
Yeah. And I go to bed, take a painkiller. I wake up at 2, 3 in the morning. Guess what? It's the pain that wakes me up. Right. And that's what it is. So it's pain and fatigue. I'm extremely tired, which is why I work in the morning, and by 1 or 2 o'clock, I'm wrapping up to go home because I'm done. Yeah, I'm done.
But I mean, it's beautiful that you structured your business in a way to suit you, to suit your needs, right? Like that's ultimately what we're doing. Like this is why we're doing all of this, right? To be like, nope, not today, Satan.
Yeah,
I'm going.
I'm sorry to hear that you have chronic pain. I know the feeling. So big hugs.
Yeah, you win. Yeah, you win the card with MS. You played the choker. No, but I suffer from endometriosis and adenomyosis, which is the endometriosis in the uterus.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So every month there are a couple of bad periods.
Oh,
as well as like IBS and the
yeah.
and celiacs. But hey, like it's all
Listen, we
fun
got
here.
this. We got this.
No problem. But right, like I mean, going back to that's I know that's where I'm like, oh, okay. Overspending, needing to course correct,
Mhm,
right? Um, but and it took me a while to actually realize that,
mhm,
right? Because I don't know, it's all it usually is more of the superficial side when you're like, oh, why you're spending 2K on takeout? Then you're probably I don't know. Answer is like, oh, I was too busy.
mhm. Why were
Well,
you too busy? Well, I needed to make more money. Why you needed to make more money? And we just go deep and deep. But I'll tell you
yeah.
this. A lot of people think that when they come to me, I'll be like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this.
Yeah.
No, I have a process that I call value-based budgeting.
Mm.
We do an exercise where we figure out what your values are. What are your top
Mm.
core values, top three core values?
Mm-hmm.
And we ensure that that is represented and reflected in your budget.
Yeah.
All right. So let's say you say to me, Pam, I have chronic pain, and 4 times a month, I can't cook.
Yeah.
I can't do anything. We need to find money in that budget where those days
Are covered.
are covered.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
we work together to find that.
Mm.
And that's how I work with my clients and budget. And we work it and not, you see, a budget is more than, what comes in and what goes out and making sure those numbers
Mm.
match. We go deep into that and we
Mm.
design a budget that really suits your lifestyle.
Yeah. I like that,
Right?
especially because otherwise it's it like it's I don't know. I go back to like the dieting thing because I feel like there's so many similarities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Everyone probably at least who grew up in like the 90s
Mm-hmm.
with like the visual role models of women in the 90s, thank you, has some sort of like eating story, like food
Yeah.
story as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like it's if you go on a crash diet and you're like, no, not eating anything, just have my water and like, I don't know, my crackers. And the same probably goes with food, with budgeting, right? If you're like, oh, I'm not spending any money, nothing at all, like just
Doesn't
gonna
work.
live on ramen noodles. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can maybe do it for a week or two, maybe you can push yourself to a month, whatever, but you all gotta crash and burn,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Like that's why I really like the valued approach of like, hey, let's
We
look at
talk, yeah,
value based and
value-based budgeting, and we also talk about topics such as consumerism and overconsumption and
oh
capitalism and
yes,
how
yes,
that
let's
shows
talk.
up, how that shows up in our life, whether we against capitalism or not, it comes in. We're living in a world
We are
that is
all against capitalism because seriously, who's profiting from the system? I bet it's not you and I. It's not
yeah,
anyone who's listening right
right.
now.
Right.
Seriously,
So
no.
yeah, so we
Unless
talk
like
about
Jeff
all of
Bezos
that.
is listening, then like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
You are
hi Jeff.
profiting.
Hi
Hello, you
Jeff.
are profiting
Yeah.
from this. Everyone else
Yeah,
is not.
yeah. But no, it's budgeting, at least the way I do it, is
Mm,
completely different. It's not just an Excel spreadsheet. It's so much more. I
I
would
like
love to
that.
work with you. Oh my God, just hearing what you do. And I'm like, oh, bring it
Yes,
on.
yes, yes. We do that. We do that. And I feel seriously like I don't know. I should look up your website, but kind of like that. Not just the Excel spreadsheet. We have to do something with the messaging. This is gold. We have to do something there. This is gold.
Go. So
Seriously.
I'm open to suggestions. Go for it.
Yeah, there is something.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not 100% there yet, but there is something because no one actually likes Excel spreadsheets.
Exactly.
There are a few people who do, and I love you, but most of us do not.
Especially when it comes to budget. A budget is not just numbers. A budget is
Yeah.
your goals and your dreams and your
Yes.
values,
I
your
always explain that kind of like
aspirations.
it's
Yeah.
more than the sums of its parts, right? Like
Mhm.
it's a different entity.
Yes.
But I'm curious again, like you said you healed your own money trauma. Can we
Mhm.
kind of like circle a bit back because I'm
Sure.
sure a lot of people are now like, Oh yeah, I like are hearing themselves and the stories you've shared, like, or in your client examples of like consumer debt, like anyone who's listening from the US, also like college debt, a huge issue. Not here in Europe, luckily.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, consumer debt, like Chris, like we're recording this today on Black Friday of all days. So I mean, consumer debt.
Yes.
And also kind of like I know I shared with you like I had a client who had a like good launch, and it was the first time she had like this big influx of money in a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I don't know, a third of that period it was
Mm-hmm.
gone again.
Yeah.
Like those are all kind of like how do we like if they're all trauma based, like the root of
Mm-hmm.
all of those are
Yeah.
traumas. And I know there we already said there are like a gazillion of traumas,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no like one size fits all, but how can we start healing
Mm-hmm.
from those traumas?
Okay, so my answer is going to be like a three-part answer. So get ready.
Hit me,
So
hit me.
I'll answer what I did to heal my trauma. So my trauma started with being angry with my mother for putting us through
Mm.
this. All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when I was able to realize that she just did the best with what she had, an
Mm.
old Indian woman back in the what 1970s, right? And no
Yes.
education. And her parents would have been immigrant, indentured workers from India, right? So no
Mm.
education there either. And what money stories would have been passed on to her? What generational I don't like to
Yeah.
use the word curse, but what generational stuff would have
Yeah.
passed on to her through lessons and DNA and all of
Yeah.
that, right? And then what
Yeah.
they would have had. So the minute I started to look outside of me and then
Yeah.
outside of my mother and then my grandparents and their parents, etc., I realized that it's not their fault. It's not their fault.
Mm-hmm.
And what I inherited, it's just I inherited it. Nobody was like, I am going to pass this on to Pamela George. No.
Okay. I'm just gonna screw with Pamela
Yeah,
today.
I'm gonna
Yeah, no,
F with her,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I realized that, and that is when the forgiveness for my mother started,
Mm.
and the forgiveness for my line, my generational line
Mm-hmm.
that came
Mm-hmm.
before me. That was very, what's the word? Cathartic is the word, I think.
Cathartic, yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Uh, um,
It is the word,
that,
and yes, this process is cathartic.
yeah. And so forgiving her
Mm.
was like the pivotal point.
Mm.
And then there was forgiving me for being angry with her and all of that.
Mm.
And around that time, I realized that this is a little bit too big for me to handle myself because I've always been an introspective person. So I was doing this
Mm-hmm.
by myself, reading books, journaling
Yeah,
and stuff. And I realized, okay, this is a little too much for me to
to
handle.
hold. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would have been like in my early 30s at the time. And that's when I sought therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to therapy and I tried different therapists. I'll try somebody for a year and I can feel, okay, the work together is done. Now I need to
Mm-hmm.
go for a different type of
Yes.
therapy, right?
Yeah,
And I
absolute. This,
and I
yes.
did, yeah, and I did different types of talk therapy. I did cognitive something it's called, I can't remember. I did that. I did energy work as well. I did lots and lots of work to really heal from that. And I'm still doing work, but that's how it's done. So when I work with my clients, and we just touch the surface with a little bit of money trauma and trauma informed money mindset. I always say to them, we are just doing the surface work here to get you aware of how it's
Mm.
affecting your money. And my advice is always go get a therapy session somewhere. I always have
Yeah,
referrals that I can send them because the work is only just starting with me.
yeah,
And I'm not a therapist, I'm a financial
yes.
counselor, and I do focus on trauma informed money
Mm-hmm.
mindset. But usually we do enough work where we can affect the budget and affect the debt and affect money, right? But anything deeper than that, they need to go and get full-fledged therapy and get some
Mm.
work done. So there's that. There was a second part to your question. So that's how I feel I am
Mm-hmm.
healing. And I will say healing, not healed,
Mm.
from my money trauma and from what happened to me. Was there a second part of your question? I feel
No. That's
that,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to circle back on two things.
Mm-hmm.
One is like kudos to you for trying out different shit. Right? Like no, but seriously, like I mean, I saw people like, "Oh, yeah, like yeah, I tried that. Like I tried journaling. It wasn't for me."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Like journaling doesn't do shit for me. Like I'm not a writing person. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
talking out loud person. That's
Yeah.
probably why no one was surprised I have a podcast. But
Yes.
I was late to the party. But like just try out different things and see how it makes you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you don't know beforehand if I don't know what kind of therapy will release something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, client of mine, she did sound healing. And she was like, nah,
I love sound healing,
what's
though. I
that?
love
Like,
it.
nah,
Yeah. I
what?
love
No,
it.
like, no. And she was like, I cried like a baby.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
just don't
Yeah.
know. Just try different things. So I love that. Like, just having this like explorer, playful mindset of like, I just gotta try.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I just
like,
didn't,
no
I
harm done.
knew, yeah, I knew I didn't want to stay where I was, right? I didn't want to stay where I was. And I want to show up as my best self for those I love. And I feel showing up where everything is a trigger for me is not fair for the
Mm.
folks around me, right? And if
It's
you
also
do it,
unfair to you because if you're in a triggered state, you're
yeah,
not feeling well.
exactly. So I wanted to heal from that. And remember, I saw what stress and unhealed trauma, unaddressed trauma did to my mother. I didn't want that for myself. And
Mm.
that in itself is a session, is a therapy session, because
Many
normally,
sessions.
you'll be like, oh, I want to be the kind of mom my mom was, or I want to be the hard worker that my mom was. So you use your mom as some kind of role model. All my life, it was, how do I not be like my mom? So
Yeah.
that in itself was a few therapy sessions. Well,
Yes. And this like could lead into another whole new episode of like if you don't want to be like your mother and to quite a high percentage I agree. I also do not want to be like my mother.
mm-hmm.
It ultimately will come to the question of okay, how will you mother yourself?
Yes. And I had to learn how to do that.
Mm.
And as a side note, there is a blog on my website, and the title is Got Money Problems? Let's Talk About Your Mother.
Yeah, that should also be more prominently placed on your
Yeah.
website.
Girl, I will take any suggestions you have.
No, I don't know. Yeah, it's just off the cuff. Yeah. Or yeah, it's like thanks, mom. Thanks, dad.
Yeah.
No, but then again
Mm-hmm.
brings me to what you said before, and I think this is so beautiful and worth noting and circling back. We're now like joking and saying thanks, mom, thanks, dad, but
Mm-hmm.
it's actually kind of like the release what you said about you have to release the anger and come into forgiveness by realizing they did the best they could.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go through that for my own set of parents too, where I was like, okay, I know where they came from and they did so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thankful for that. And then, but for me, the hard stone was to swallow was like, okay, if we're going to say everyone is like, like they're trying the best they could. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone is trying the best they could.
Yes.
That means now that's the real kicker. You are also doing the best you could.
Yes.
And still, we look back at Chen from last year, at Pamela from 2 years ago, and often crap on ourselves.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I just want to say something. You started to talk about your parents, and we're talking about mothers, and I just felt the need to pull my crystal and hold it in my hands.
What is this kind of? Is it amethyst or what is it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
What is the meaning of the amethyst? I have no
I
idea
do
about
not
crystals.
know.
Okay,
I
fair
do
enough.
not know, but I'll tell you
I
this.
also have crystals, and because I just like them, they're pretty.
Yeah.
But I have no idea.
No, I actually one of my so I intend to learn more about them in the new year.
Yeah.
But I love having crystals around me. But we were talking about that mother energy, and I just felt the need to pick it up, and like it was soothing to me. So even after all these years, there is still obviously something in me that felt it needed soothing while we were talking about this, because I grabbed my crystal.
Yeah, and it's so okay. So I have to be fair. I do not pretend I am smarter than I am, although I'm pretty fucking smart. I just Googled, random Google search, amethyst, crystal, meaning.
Yeah.
You know what came up?
Tell me.
Amethyst apparently is the best crystal for mothers.
No way.
Yeah. I'm like, seriously? You can tell me about all the woo-woo things and you don't have to believe anything. That's cool.
Yeah, wow.
But sometimes you cannot make this shit up.
Wow. And I have other crystals here.
And amethyst is a natural stress reliever. Oh, hello, triggers. Which calms the mind and neutralizes negative energy.
Wow. That's why I'm holding it in my hand now.
Yeah, there you go. Seriously, you cannot make this up. So see, those things, those nudges, right? Those are the things that can help us heal. And whenever you have like a little nudge like this, go execute.
Yeah.
Whether it's in your business or holding a crystal, which is like, just go execute on it. What you say, Pam?
Oh my God. I say follow your gut. I think a lot of women, we have been taught to not follow that, not given to it, not given to our feminine powers. I believe our feminine power is powerful if we would just listen and dive into it, right? Of course, everything in balance, but in the
that's why we said we have the spreadsheets and we have the thing, right? Like when you work with me, like my clients know they have the Google Analytics data and they have the woo. So I'm like, let me pull up your Google Analytics data and then let me pull a tarot card just to see where we're at, right? Like it's not this or that. Let's just go. Like, I don't know. I hate those dualities in all
one
forms.
or the other. Yeah.
Let's just go for and. We always go for and.
I think if we can just lean in a little more to our feminine, our whatever woo we feel we call to, I think incorporating that with the facts and the logic and the numbers, it can really take us places.
Yes. Ooh, that's a really lovely word, lovely sentiment to also end our podcast, sadly, because I feel like we could go for another hour.
Yeah, I know.
We have stamina. So Pam, tell us, like, where can people find you online? Where do you hang out? I know you host a money date. Do you want to tell me something about it?
Yeah, it's the third Wednesday of every month from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time. I'm in Canada, Ottawa, Canada. So it's every third Wednesday, 1 to 2, and it's free. I do an free event, and it's usually on all my social media. You just do a search for me, it will show up. So there's that, and I invite everybody. What we do, we have about the first 15 minutes where I do a mini lesson just a mini lesson.
Mm.
And then we spend 30 minutes getting shit done. You know, the bills you
Ooh.
don't want to pay, or the statements you don't
Taxes.
want to look at, the taxes, whatever it is. We keep the
Oh, I
camera
like that.
on, we go on mute, and we do our shit.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I
then,
like that. I
yeah,
did a lot of co-working like
yeah,
that during the pandemic. It's
right.
like,
So it's similar to that.
mm-hmm.
And then at about 10 minutes to the hour, we wrap up, and there's some accountability. Okay, tell us, what did you do? What didn't you do? I saw you on the phone while we should have been working. What's going on with that? That type of
Where
thing.
are you talking to your accountant? I hope you say yes
I
now.
hope so. So that's what I do, the money day, the third Wednesday of every month. And I'm launching a group. It's what I call the Prosperity Circle. And it starts on January 10th. It's 6 months where we meet every other week, and we go over my signature system. We cover, and it's called the 7 pillars of money management. So registration is now open for that. I don't just take anybody blindly. You need to book a call with me.
Yeah,
so
application
we can see,
based.
Yeah, you book a call with me, and we need to see if we're a good fit, but 2, I need to talk to you to figure out if you're ready for this.
Yeah.
Right. So if that's something you want to do, you can do that. But my website, sorry, not but, and my website
yes, yes.
My website is simple. It's sanddollar.co, not com, not CA, but co. I'm all hip, right? It's the latest thing.
Yes, you're on the B. We're going to link it in the show notes as well. So yes, that's amazing. Thank you.
I enjoyed
I love
this.
the money
That's
day.
so much laughter. Oh my gosh.
That's the right. Like, you come for the knowledge, you stay for the entertainment.
There you go.
And I have one more question before I let you go, because I'm curious and always need new materials. What book are you currently reading? Or audiobook, whatever. Like,
no, I love to read. I have my Kobo e-reader, and I am reading Yoga Bitch.
Okay, what is that about?
Yoga Bitch. I'm now like on page 5, and it's this woman who is talking about her journey. Smoking and transcendence, I believe, is what.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. So it's Yoga Bitch. I recommend it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, Pamela, it was an absolute bless to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. All the love.
Thank you. Right back at you, girl. Right back at you. Thank you.